Good morning also to the folks that have taken the time to be with us this morning for the Board of Trustees Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. And as you all know, the heavy work of this committee is done in the first part of the year, and we now will begin to hear about some of the planning going on for next year and some action items that we have. So first thing today is a roll call, and Heidi, I'll ask you to do that for me.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Baker.
Present.
Trustee DeLay. Trustee Freeman. Trustee Jacobs.
Here.
Trustee Martin. Here. Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Eisenberg.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First action will be the approval of the minutes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
And we have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any changes, discussion, omissions, anything we need to correct? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So carried. Any opposed? Now with us is Alan Thomas. Alan, if you don't mind, walk us through the agenda items, and there will be action that this committee has to take today. So Alan, if you'll begin.
Thank you, Chairman Jacobs, and other committee members and other board members that are with us today. Appreciate you being here. The first item is a budget development and compensation timelines. We did something similar at this meeting last year, just to kind of give you some information about what the rest of the year looks like in our budget development. It starts in August of each year. That's a request from THEC regarding a lot of data that they request that goes into the formula funding and other models that they run. So we have submitted that to THEC, and I think most other schools have as well. So if you look on page 11, I won't go through this completely. It is pretty similar to last year. November is a big month because that's THEC's winter meeting, and they will publish at that meeting the appropriation recommendation for each school. So we will know dollar amounts at that time that THEC is recommending, both in the outcomes part of the formula and new funding in the formula. THEC will also issue a non-binding tuition and fee guidance range at that time too. That's the non-binding. That's the one they try to give you a little bit of ahead of time, but they will not set the binding until after the governor's budget is completed later.
Now, Alan, do
yes.
they let the universities participate in this planning stage, or do they do it themselves and then just...
Yeah, we submit all the numbers and they run it through the formula.
So they
as
do
it
all
is.
their...
The formula is set, for a 5-year period with university presidents, TBR representation, UT representation. So they use that formula to do this. So that is all kind of predetermined using that formula. So probably the major change in this one and last year is the governor's budget will probably be back on schedule this year. Last year it was a new governor coming in, so the budget didn't come out till the end of February. This year, if it goes back to the regular schedule, it'll come out in January, to where then we're doing budget hearings, legislative budget hearings probably in February and March. So it moves things hopefully a little bit quicker than it did last year. But still expect, as in most years, the governor's budget and legislature passing the appropriations bill probably no earlier than end of April, 1st of May. And then that's when THEC has their meeting is around that time frame, and that's when they will issue their binding tuition and fee ranges at that time. So, and then we take that into consideration then in developing the budget that's presented to this committee. So all that's about the same as in years past. May jump up just about a month because the governor's budget may come out a little earlier than last year. So, and that's for the fiscal year 2021 budget. And we will keep you updated at each meeting, kind of how that goes. You'll have a November meeting. We'll also have a February, March meeting, and we'll provide updates along the way and not wait till May to provide everything there. The other item I wanted to update you on was the salary increases. If you recall, we did establish a 2% salary pool in the budget that this committee recommended and the full board approved at the last meeting. And they also approved that 1% of the pool would be used to do an across the board or a cost of allowance raise. That was implemented in July for regular staff, administrative and classified staff. August 1 for faculty. They're just slightly on a different schedule. So that 1% has been done. We are holding as recommended. The other 1% is still in the pool, and we're also waiting on finalized enrollment numbers for this fall to see what flexibility there might be to add to that pool, salary pool, from any enrollment increase, or what that looks like. So that's kind of why we're holding. So what we plan to do then is bring that to you at the November meeting. Of course, that would be approved by the full board in December, and then make those those increases effective July 1 in accordance with our current market study. So,
July 1 of this year or next year?
excuse me.
July 1 of this year or next year?
It will be January 1.
January.
1. So if we bring it to you in November, December, then that gives us time to get it into the January 1. So, so I just kind of wanted to update you on that information there. One other item, and it's not in here, but it's been talked about this morning, and I've talked to Chairman Jacobs about, is an EAB product that we're exploring. Provost office is kind of heading this one up. It's the Academic Performance Solutions, APS project. It's in its early stages, but it's a lot of data collection by EAB as far as enrollments in each of your areas, kind of what your budgets are in each of those areas, with a lot of other data. And then they come back and do some benchmarking for you to see how you may compare, see what adjustments might be able to be done. And so it's just, right now, it's a lot of data being loaded by the company. Hopefully it'll help make those better decisions between departments, with strategic budgets and so forth. And that's kind of what we do now. But this one will just provide more data. It doesn't, it's not a program that's going to tell you need to do this. You need more faculty here or anything like that. It gives you more data so you can strategically make decisions that you may need to make.
So it's cost per student?
Yes, it will have some of that information in there, yes. We've got little ways to go. It doesn't, with our accounting system, doesn't always match up to how departments are having their courses and stuff. So we've got to separate some of that out to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples on all of that information. So that's why the data is being loaded and will take a while to get that done. So I think we can provide some information maybe at the next meeting and possibly at the next to kind of just tell you where we are on that. So we're working through that now. So, but and that's
Alan,
it.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. EAB, what's EAB?
Education Advisory Board.
Education advisory.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Out
Yeah.
of Washington DC that does work
And-
rights for universities.
Yeah, and we have several products with them over the years, and this is just one product that we've recently adapted. So like I said, it's in its early stages, but something I think that will be productive. in that.
Sort of wrapping Chairman Smith's question back to where you started. So if we collect all this data and we have all these ideas and we know what our dollar per student expenditure is, which the last time I looked, our funding per student is so much lower than anybody else's. How do we take all this data and use it to influence off-campus decision-making within this timeline? How do we influence what we see with other people off campus that make decisions about our livelihood?
I think that's something you won't see it probably in this timeline because we're going through the process right now, collecting data, and we want to make sure it's accurate, scrub the data and all that. But in the next timeline, is that something that, that we work with THEC on or something like that? Or, the next thing that is coming up is the funding formula. It's on its last year of the second 5-year phase. So there could be something there that we see that could influence, what changes would we like to see in the funding formula. We've talked about some of those already.
Trustee Martin, I'd also like to add, if you notice on the schedule, February and March, I represent the university, the budget hearings in front of the House and Senate committee, and that's one opportunity to bring that information to their attention in terms of the impact of the university.
And I'm assuming we use it internally. That's like
Yes.
a no-brainer.
Right, correct, yes. But yes, you never know what questions will come up in those Senate and House budget hearings, so you try to anticipate. So I think this would be good data to be able to have with us at those hearings. But this was an informational item. If there's any other questions, if not, we can go.
No doubt
Yes.
budget is direct related to enrollment, and we got an excellent from President McPhee email last week concerning enrollment. Do we have it may be 10 days ago, and I take for granted we know daily what that number is. Do we have an update there?
Yes, we do, and I'll turn to our vice president, her and her staff, along with the faculty colleagues, have done a great job this year.
You're right, we do run it every day. There are some people that are interested in knowing what those numbers look like. I regret that Trustee Freeman isn't here today because I remember some time ago when we discussed enrollment, I told him that we were hoping for an 8% increase in new students, and he immediately said, could you make that 10? And I wish he was here today because in our new student undergraduate enrollment today, we're up 9.99%. So I'm hoping he would say that's close enough for government work and call it 10%. Right now, our overall enrollment, and last night was our last purge date. So last night was the last night that we took students out of our enrollment who had not yet paid their bill. There will be some of them that will re-enroll, but at this point they will have to completely pay for their enrollment status before they can enroll in those classes. So last year, after the last purge, we re-enrolled 137 students. We'll be looking this year to see how many we get re-enrolled. But after last night's purge, we stand today up 81 students over where we were last year. After the purge, that's 0.38% increase in our overall enrollment. Our new freshman enrollment is up 14.47%. Our transfer student enrollment is up 3.93%. And as I said, our total new undergraduate enrollment is up 9.99%. So we're feeling very good about these numbers.
Dr. Sells, the number of students we purged last night, approximately.
We were 212, I think. Is that right? 212? Yes, and that was down about 12 over the previous year.
We're making some really good progress over the years. Still, 212 students been dropped from the roll, and we still see a slight increase in enrollment.
As a side note, 3 of those were students whose homes are in the Bahamas, and we pulled them out. We didn't purge anyone who's dealing with that kind of massive tragedy at this point.
And do we have the resources to know why they dropped out?
We run the report that shows us how many of them dropped out for lack of payment, how many dropped out for lack of, what do we call it? Yeah, they just indicated that they're not coming after all, and I can pull those numbers. I don't have them with me today. I don't remember, unless you do. Yeah.
Help me with the numbers. The 10% number is what
10%
number?
is our total new undergraduates, so the combined total of new freshmen and new transfers coming in, our new student
Oh,
class
just
this
that-
fall.
Just that subsection.
Yes, that'll total this year. We'll have 5,383 brand-new students this fall, and that's up almost 10%.
But when we add everybody together.
Everybody together will be at, as of today, 21,634, which is up about a third of a percentage point.
So we're basically flat.
No, we're up a third of a percentage point.
We're
Well, in
rounding
government-
sometimes.
In government work, that's flat.
We round up at 9.99, but we don't round down at 0.38.
The other
What would
number,
you do if you're,
Mary would agree with me.
I agree.
Yes, there we go. Yeah.
that's not how y'all taught me.
Trustee Jacob, the other number we're really proud of, which is your lifeline, is your freshmen, your new incoming freshmen. And to have a 14, close to 15% increase. We've seen some preliminary numbers from our sister institutions, preliminary. And I would say that we're glad we're in this position. We don't know what the final numbers would be for them, but what we have seen, we are very happy.
And the other thing is, if you bring them in as freshmen as opposed to juniors and transfers, you've got a 4-year
That's right.
Yes.
pipeline. They're in the pipeline 4 years if you can retain and keep them learning. And that gives you more predictability.
Absolutely.
We won't know until we get to census, but we've also run preliminary data on ACT and GPA of that entering freshman class, and it appears again to be a new record for us. So we've expanded that class by nearly 15% without decreasing any of their qualifications, so we feel good about that.
It's
Now,
very important.
Didn't we about 6 to 9 months ago have a doom and gloom presentation, said the birth rate's down?
Oh, it is.
That we were going to, universities were going to start sucking wind. and-
Well, that prediction's still there because.
Oh,
there was
it
an-
is?
There was
Oh,
an
it's still there.
article, yes,
Yeah,
there was
he's
an
doing a
article
hell
out
of a
yesterday.
job.
Oh,
We
okay.
got more than our share.
He-
Well, now give us some credit.
I think Sydney listened to the Arizona State guy's presentation.
No, I didn't. He's in a different orbit altogether.
There was an article yesterday that a very prestigious think tank is predicting that 20% of the universities will be closed in 25 years.
Really?
That was
We'll
just out
see
this
next
week.
week how the other LGIs have done. We've agreed to share numbers once we get to the census date, but our preliminary numbers from the first day of classes that we saw indicated that most of the other LGIs are going to be flat or down. The fact remains that it is a slowing pipeline. We don't expect growth in Tennessee for high school graduates, and we don't expect it in the contiguous states either. They're all going to be down or flat. So the only growth will come from stealing them from somebody else. And I think we had a pretty good year for stealing
And keeping them in the pipeline.
and keeping them once we have them. It's much more cost efficient to hold on to a student than for us to go out and recruit new ones.
So since we came in so close, Alan, is that what the budget is based on?
The budget will be based on FTE, so we're looking at those numbers now because we base everything on that, which FTE is calculated based on the number of hours they're taking. So we will look at this, and at our next meeting, we will have the October, what we call the revised October budget at that time, and it will be based on if there's funding available to put more in salaries, that will be in there. If we've got some other priorities like new academic programs that came on board this year that have to be funded, all that will be outlined in the next budget.
If I could expand on that, FTE is based on how many courses each student
Yes.
takes. So that ACT going up and the GPA going up generally means your FTE goes up because your better
Yes,
students
the
take more classes.
classes.
So that's a nice indicator too, and definitely the way we want it to go.
How many hours do we use to consider an FTE? Is it 12?
12 on an undergraduate. Mhm.
Okay. Okay, good. Alan?
Yes.
I'm sorry, quick question. I'm not clear about one thing. So the ones that dropped out, the 212 or whatever for non-payment, do we have any resources to follow up and know if that's because of financial reasons, or if it's for just non-payment, maybe they didn't get it done or whatever.
If Dr. Sluter was here, he would tell you that we could ask any one of our academic advisors which of their students are not re-enrolled for fall and what are the reasons. So yes, we have that information. It's the academic advisors who work with those small cohorts of 300 students per advisor that are tracking individually each of their 300 students. And he tells us all the time that you can pick up the phone and call any one of those advisors and they know exactly what the reason is for their students. I have spent probably too many hours this past week out on those parent Facebook pages and the student Facebook pages, talking to parents and families about the issues that they are running across. We were concerned that this year there might be more financial issues than usual, which is why it was really good news that the purge last night was actually down. I know that when I talked with Lori Witherow, who's our enrollment assistant VP, she was very concerned that our purge numbers would be up, but in fact they were down. So we feel pretty good about that. It should indicate that we did a better job, I think, this year of using our financial aid dollars through the scholarship program. So since we increased that presidential scholarship so dramatically this year from $2,000 to $4,500, that makes a huge impact on those families that may have been in the past $1,000 short. That's now been covered. Next year, our intention is to add a new scholarship for students in the ACT 23 and 24 category. That'll be $2,000 a year. And that's a scholarship we've never offered before. So I think that's going to have another positive impact, again, on those students who are really good students, but might have in the past been $1,000 or $2,000 short. This will now stop that gap for them.
That's great.
Yes,
Just
sir.
let me add, as we add these scholarship dollars, we are very careful and fiscally conservative to make sure that the scholarship pays for itself. So we have target number of students that we have to enroll without compromising our academic standards that will allow us to pay for that additional, and we've done that and more for this year. So
Yeah, we knew that out of the new students this year, we had to have 264 more to pay. I know exactly how many we have to pay for those scholarship increases, and we beat that considerably. Yes, sir.
You're getting down to the 23, 24 level. I'm almost could get a scholarship.
Come on. We'll be happy to enroll you and count you as one of my new students.
Question, when you talked about academic advisors, the 300 students per does that include the different colleges advisors as well into that, for not the whole total university?
We'll let Mark talk about that because that falls in his area.
As you probably remember, a few years ago, we launched our Quest for Student Success, and a key part of that was, one, adopting EAB as our platform, but more importantly was hiring additional academic advisors to get us to the national standard of 300 to 1, that is 300 students per one advisor. And we're actually a little bit better than that now, I'm happy to say, and that does, as Deb mentioned, give them the chance to follow each one individually. And so before the purge, all our advisors had a list of their advisees who had not paid and were in danger of being purged, and they were contacted repeatedly. You know, you're never going to get 100%, but we're doing all we can to remove the roadblocks there and, you know, give them advice about how to move forward. The advisors are organized according to college, more specifically to your question. And it really, the number varies based on the number of majors in that college. It's an impressive group of people. We require a master's degree, and they just are incredibly dedicated to what they do.
300 is the national average. Is that an optimum number, or?
If I said that, I didn't say it
maybe
quite
I
right.
misheard you.
It's the national standard set by NACADA, which is the National Professional Advising Organization. So that's their recommendation, is 300 to 1. And most schools would not, I would guess, would not be quite that good. So we're actually slightly better than that. So we're in really good shape, and it represents, you know, a very significant financial investment that the university made a few years ago to hire those advisors to get us to that ratio.
The reason I asked, my sister is an advisor for a for-profit school. She has 100 students.
yeah.
So that's why I asked if that's an optimum number.
100 is really, really low, so I'm guessing her job is different than, I don't know. If that involves some selling as well, I can't speak to that. We're roughly at 280 or so across the university, which is really good for an institution like us.
Is it worth a look to see if we were at 200 or whatever the number is, we could maintain X more students and they pay for themselves, advisors pay for themselves?
It'd be a hard thing to calculate. I think we're at the point now where it's not that we're not contacting students enough, it's that their problems are significant enough that an advisor can't help them, that either they just don't have the money, doesn't matter how many calls they get from an advisor, they don't have the money, or life happens, or they're in academic distress. So I'll always take more staff, but I'm not sure that really will drive
Tom,
enrollment.
the president and I have met with Senator Alexander, who's ranking on the Education Committee. And one of the things, obviously, that we're all concerned about is graduating 50% of our students. And there's quite a bit of research, and he's promised we'll call a work session in the near future, because he's promised to identify best experts in the world so that we can move that 52 to 56 or whatever is a reasonable goal. And the early research is more coaches, more advisors. And to steady, I think Jim and Janet Ayers on a high school level have done that in a rural county, and that is the children didn't need more money, they just need to find out where they could get it. And they've put every high school graduate in their county a college scholarship, and what they found out is the number of dollars they had to spend. They got good advisors and said, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. So I'm hoping, working with Department of Education and Senator Alexander, perhaps even we could be a guinea pig for the department too, because we've got to get graduation rate more than 50. I know it's 52, but I mean, whatever it is, we've got to get that up, and that's a good.
Thank you.
The other one, Alan, that I have, and it's not a next week or next day job, but we need to know what's the perfect number. We need to know our optimum student count. And we've talked about this a number of times, but I'd like for the minister to reflect in 6 months or a year or sometime. I'd like to know, are we most efficient at 26,000? Or do we need to raise our standards because at 19,000 we're most efficient? I don't know what that number is, but nearly every other organization has, we got this many chairs and this many teachers, this much. What's the most efficient number? Because I suppose if we'd have had 4,000 more that would have qualified, we would have taken them. Or 4,000 less. We just need to know what number I'd like to have that in the next few months. I know you've got lots of jobs.
So slightly different question, if you don't mind. I've lost track of what the average student age is. It was 27, the last I looked, was the average student age. When you get 27 as your average student age, you've got a different set of problems that can get in your way when life happens. It may be elder care, your parents' care that you're worried about, or it may be child care. If there's any way with that EAB and the survey of students, when we put all of our survey of students online, we were told that when you do the survey of students' satisfaction, we could send out more surveys if we needed to, or add questions. Maybe we could use that to send out an extra survey to find out what's going on collectively in our student population, because we can't assume that they just couldn't work enough hours, because it might be something completely different. And it would help us reach that perfect rate or that perfect understanding if we knew which population of students were having which problems.
And work with the provost on that and Dr. Sluter to, with that APS product. Okay, we can do that.
All right, Alan,
Is that it?
back on the agenda.
Okay. Well, that worked so well, I might use some more lifelines. I didn't have any on that one, so that worked well. So behind tab 3, this is policy revisions. There will be 3 today. The first one will be presented by Secretary Zimmerman, and the next 2 relate to campus planning and facilities, and those will be addressed by Bill Waits, Assistant Vice President for Campus Planning. Ms. Zimmerman?
Thank you. So the first policy for your consideration is Policy 101. We call it Minors on Campus. And what we are proposing are additions that set out with more clarity things that can or cannot be done within our camps or programs for minors. And also being added is a section on enforcement for when those policy provisions are violated. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Do these fall within the normal guidelines?
Yes, they do.
On 622, why are we proposing that the title be in State of Tennessee instead of what it may be now?
Do we want
Well,
to take these in order? and-
I'm sorry, I
Finish
thought you were
There
putting
we
them
are.
all,
Okay.
I thought we
Yeah.
were putting them all in the package.
Okay.
Well, no, that's the one we're talking about, 101.
See, the first,
The very last,
Well, the first
policy
one
622.
right, we can, Bill can talk about 622.
Yeah.
So on 622, of course, this is the acquisition and disposal of real property. Before we had that the acquisition title would be and the university, name of the university, and per stream, which is State of Tennessee Real Estate Asset Management, that title needs to be the State of Tennessee. So that was really a stream policy and procedure to be in line with.
And all properties have always been in the state of Tennessee's name, even when we were under Tennessee Board of Regents. I think that was an area when we were going through changing our policies or adopting TBR policies. We kind of just changed everything that we saw in a policy from whatever to, MTSU Board of Trustees.
Does
So I-
that somehow limit, did someone ask us to do that, or is this, we just looked through and looking for changes, or how did we come up with that?
Well, it was both. Actually, Alan mentioned, when we were under the TBR, they had a lot of title that was still under the Board of Regents. Before severance, Stream contacted us. We went and changed all the title of that to read State of Tennessee. So it was a request by them to go and change our old deeded property. And then obviously, any new property would follow suit and retain that State of Tennessee title.
I guess I'm interested in that too, because I know when we changed all those policies, all of our buildings and so forth were held by TBR, which I know TBR was Regents, and I don't understand. I don't understand that this functionally changed. TBR really wasn't the state, or was it that TBR was the state, or did the legislature change how it could? I mean, does TBR still put all of its buildings on the community colleges?
I don't believe they do. I think they have moved to state of Tennessee. I think when this Focus Act came out, that's when that change was made. And, in the past, like you said, it wasn't in TBR, but when we went through the governance change,
Right.
the state of Tennessee sent us a list and we developed a list as well of all our properties and asked to move them into the state of Tennessee name on behalf of, I think it says on behalf of Middle Tennessee State University.
That's correct.
So in your mind, this isn't a reality change, it's a paperwork change?
Right.
Because if it used to be held in the board, that's a huge difference than moving it up to Nashville.
I suspect, Alan, this has to do with the bond issuance, because the state issues all the bonds.
Right.
So if the property's held in the name of the university, then you've got an issue with this collateral behind the bond.
Correct.
So if it was held by TBR, they might have had a separate document saying that this is pledged to the state of Tennessee or whatever. So I'm sure that's somebody noticed that and
Right.
suggested.
And that was a big piece of the Focus Act was that bonding, and several of our projects that we do over time is done by bonded projects. So the name change would we don't want it in TBR's name, so the best thing was put it in state of Tennessee. And like I said, I believe each one of them still say on behalf of Middle Tennessee State University.
Are there any questions concerning these three policy changes? Policy 101, 620, and 622? Can we take them all at one, Heidi?
Yes, sir, if you choose to do that.
Do you need a motion?
Just, everybody's up to speed? Need a motion?
I move that we accept these three.
Got a motion? Need a second? Second. Got a second? Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimously.
Okay, we'll move to tab 4. This is something we've done in the past at this meeting. Two lifelines here. Bill Waits will start out discussion just to give you an update on capital outlay, what our projects are looking like, kind of time frame. Joe Whitefield, then Assistant Vice President for Facility Services, will then give you an update on all of our capital maintenance projects. And since we're getting several more maintenance projects each year, we have several overlapping from one year to the next, and they carry on. So just wanted to try to give everybody an update, kind of where we are on our state-funded projects, capital outlay, and our maintenance projects. So I'll let Bill talk on the first one.
Thank you, Alan. I have three capital outlay projects to update you on. The first is the academic classroom building. This was the last outlay project that we had under the Board of Regents. This was an FY 18-19 project. 91,000 square foot building for criminal justice, psychology, and social work, which are all under the Behavioral Health and Sciences academic unit, college. Currently about a little over 50% done with construction on that. So if you drive by on Blue Raider Drive and MTSU Boulevard, you'll see the progress. It's very exciting. That is scheduled for completion in June 2020. Then we, of course, recently, the School of Concrete Construction Management was our outlay request last year. We were lucky enough to get that approved and in the budget for FY 19-20. Just a little bit about that building. That's a 54,000 square foot project with classroom, labs, faculty, and staff offices for the School of Concrete Construction Management. We'll also have demolition of Abernathy and Ezell halls and an addition to the satellite chiller plant that will serve the East Quad of campus. And that project was approved by the State Building Commission on July 11, 2019. And we are currently starting design on that one. So that's an exciting new one to follow up the classroom building project. And then last, applied engineering building. And actually, I said that School of Concrete was last year. This was this year. So in July, we submitted this one. And it's an 88,000 square foot structure for the applied engineering disciplines. That's engineering technology and mechatronics engineering. So we will submit that to FNA next month, or actually at the end of this month, and we will wait. Currently, it's being scored by THAC, and of course, they present their recommended project list to the governor, and that should be coming this fall. And then, of course, at the turn of the new year, we'll see the governor's budget, and hopefully we'll be included in that. And so we'll have to wait and see on that one. And that's kind of the three that we have out there. And of course, any questions or comments, I'd be glad to try to address any of those.
Bill,
Yes, sir.
mine is thank you for the updates.
Yes, sir.
But more than that, looking forward,
Mhm.
do you have any announcements about any property gifting or acquisitions that's carrying us forward?
It's not a gift. We do have an acquisition that we're in the process of doing right now, a property on East Main Street, 1717 East Main Street. So I think that'll be.
Is that a resident?
It is a residence. So we will be, not a large property, but certainly one we're looking at. And then we have some leases and things like that that are relatively minor, but we're always, of course, trying to aggressively go after properties in our acquisition area to ensure that we have that elbow room to grow and for future facilities, so.
Okay. If, for example, University of Memphis just made an announcement about buying a church and 3 residences on their property, and said they had in consideration 6 active other acquisitions. That's pretty active.
Sure.
So that's a reference.
Right.
So the new classroom will be done next summer?
That's correct.
Concrete will be done when?
Concrete is, we'll be finished with construction on that in spring 2023.
So we're still.
Or that will be the academic semester that it will be occupied. It'll actually be finished in late '22.
Okay.
And then, of course, we'll have to move in and shuffle people around. So
Okay. And we submitted this last one last time.
the applied engineering building,
Yeah.
if it gets approved for funding, we're looking at a summer '23 completion on that one.
What is next on the list?
Well, I hate to speak, we haven't really, that's a discussion I think we need to have with administration. We haven't decided yet, and of course, the board would certainly need to vote on that as well.
I believe what we would do is find out what TX scoring is on this, see where we fall within the capital outlay scoring, and then at the next meeting, we would bring back to the committee and then the board, what project do we submit next time? Because it takes from now till next July to get that all together, whether we submit the same project again, or do we shift gears and submit a different project. So those are discussions we need to have, but we've tried to wait until we see what this scoring looks like to decide. You know, of course, if it's the same project, it's a little easier because you've already packaged it once, so there's tweaks to be made. But if you are going for another project, then there's a little bit more involved, and we want to have plenty of time to put that together.
So when you say the scoring, you mean their priorities and their emphasis and what they're willing to look at and what they just don't even want to think about?
TX got a scoring card that they use and award points. I mean, we know what the points are for match, how to get most of those points, and there's some based on how does it fit your master plan, your academic master plan, and all that. And they have a scoring committee that's, I believe, made up of internal and external members. I think I'm correct on that. I don't know, do you know for sure, Bill? But I don't know exactly, but I've heard a little bit about that. But
they change that fairly regularly, or change some of it year to year?
yes.
And it is a blind review.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, so
But guys, we may want to submit 2 like we did. That worked out well.
Well,
It didn't get them both with one shot, but we got them consecutively. And I wonder if we would have, if it hadn't have been on their radar screen.
Well, I know the one we've just submitted for that one, they limited it to 1. It was in the
That's because
instructions.
we may have gamed the system there.
Right. So each year they could limit it, or if it's silent to a limitation, yes, we could.
This is TX
Yes,
rule.
yes.
Alan, how many students are in applied engineering currently?
Oh, how many students are in applied
Applied engineering.
engineering?
Mechatronics has 400, and then there's a couple hundred.
In engineering technology? A couple hundred in engineering
That's
technology.
a well-kept secret.
So,
So I think we really need to promote that academic area more. I mean, I think there'd be a lot more interest if people, and maybe high school students realize it's there and I don't, but I only heard about it a year or so ago. I was shocked. So we got 600 students, so it seems to be a lot of interest.
We get a lot of veterans in there because
Sorry.
we get a lot of veterans in mechatronics because a lot of the experiences they have in the military transfer over into that same kind of knowledge set, and they can pick up the classes and go faster with them.
That's a great comment. Do we advertise, and right now it's slipping my mind, but there is a military newspaper, Stars and Stripes. Do we advertise in Stars and Stripes?
We do not, sir. That's a national publication, although we have appeared in Army Times and Military Times, which has a similar audience.
That's great. I mean, because we're attracting, it seems like a lot of synergy there for
Yes, sir.
different areas.
Trustee Boyd, sorry, on the issue of the engineering, mechatronics engineering program and the advertisement, we certainly could do more, but we do have a very strong partnership with the school system through the certification program from Oakland High to the community college to the university, that this is one of the programs that saw explosive growth when we started this just a few years ago. And so we, in fact, it grew much faster than we actually had anticipated or planned for. But it is an area overall, to your point, the fact that now we have a, quote, pure engineering program is something that I think we can do a better job of getting the word out, because prior to the mechatronics engineering degree program, we were engineering technology. And so we are trying to get that word out that we are much more engaged with pure engineering to our students.
Great program, so very applicable.
Andrew, I think we get some advertisement in the military papers also because of the articles done about the success of our ROTC, right? Perhaps?
Sorry, I was told never to speak from my chair. I need to come to the mic. Yes, Trustee, that is correct. Not only the success of the ROTC program, but really just the overwhelming success of the Charlie and Hazel Daniels Veterans and Military Family Center. It's generally regarded as the most comprehensive veteran service organization of its kind in the nation. So we get a lot connected with that. And obviously the general does a fantastic job as probably our chief brand spokesperson of that. So there's a lot of resonance on that. And Trustee, to the point that we were talking earlier, Dr. McPhee correctly said that it has been an explosive growth in mechatronics, and those partnerships not only at the high schools but the community college level, key to that. Governor Lee, when he came to campus, then President McPhee hosted him, really celebrated that with the Siemens gift and all the other aspects of that partnership. And then President McPhee had a column in the Tennessean just over the weekend referencing the mechatronics program and how that was one of our pride points of the Ready to Work majors that we've put forward.
Thank you.
Okay, if nothing else, then Joe
I have a
White.
quick question,
Yes,
actually.
sorry.
I heard about it a little while ago, and this is probably slightly out of context, but that athletics update that was that approved in the master plan, or is that going to be updated as well?
So we went through a process with THEC first off to get it amended to our campus master plan. That's important because that's really kind of the first step. When we go forward to the building commission, they'll want to ensure that that's in line with our long-range planning.
Okay.
So we approved it with that, and then followed up with the state building commission, had a presentation with them. So the athletic master plan has been amended to our campus master plan, 2016.
I just remember hearing about it, and I couldn't remember if it was an approval to the master plan or an approval to get it done. So I just wanted to check. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joe Whitefield.
Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. Good to be with you today. On page 53 and 54, we have for you just a list of our previous capital maintenance projects. And let me just take a minute and share with you. We go back to our time together in May and June and the approval of the capital maintenance project request. Those projects that were approved by the full board in June are listed first as FY 2021 projects. But at the time that we approved those projects, not only do we present those, what I'll say are the current projects, but we also present 4 years looking forward. So today, we're going to take and look backwards so that you kind of have a little bit of hindsight that shows kind of where we're coming from. And if you sort of couple this with what we do earlier when we make the request, I think hopefully together they kind of give you a kind of a full picture about some history and some of the plans. And so I think if you were to look at these, I can certainly answer any questions, but you'll see some patterns and some things like that start to emerge. What we have primarily is to show you a little bit about the timeline for projects and project development and implementation. The 2021 projects, the 6 that are listed, totaling $10,050,000, those were approved, and of course, those have been submitted to THEC, and it'll start that annual process of going through all the budgets and ultimately ended up in the governor's budget and legislative budget at the end of the year. FY 2019 and 2020, the previous years, the funding for those projects as they were approved came July 1 of this year, so we're a little bit more than a month and a half or so into those projects. And so the actual, where they stand in the process is designers, architect, engineers have been selected. That process starts once the projects are approved and the funding's here, and that fiscal year, that process starts. So that's why those are listed as they are. One note about that you'll probably see, and that is with project number 2, our Kirksey Old Main project. Once we went through the process last year for all the funding, we actually submitted that project at over $5 million, but ultimately the funding got reduced. We had $8 to $10 million worth of projects submitted, and that got reduced to 4.7. So that scope got revised to accommodate the funding levels that were provided to us at $4.7 million.
So were they asked for again, 2021?
They were not. That scope was not, because there's we'll have to go back and revisit that, what to do. So the critical HVAC components of that project remain. That's what the mechanical and HVAC, the critical, what we deem the most critical aspects of that project remain in this scope, and then we'll have to replan the others. And the reason they weren't just rolled right back in a lot of times is because we have to think about what a building can stand in terms of the consecutive years of construction and things like that. So there's a little bit of art to planning these things and staging these things, but those will definitely come back up. Yes, sir.
The total funding for 1920 is about half of what the historical funding has been per year. Was there some reason at the state level or something why that was cut so much?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't know what the reason was, but it was across the board. When you looked at the allocation for all capital maintenance, it wasn't just for us, it was across the board. Typically, we have a funding formula that says we receive about 6.8% of the statewide funding for capital maintenance for higher ed, and THEC and everyone will typically tell us $120 million is the large statewide goal, or $150 million, and that's how we develop our lists from that. And somewhere along the line, that got cut back considerably through the budgeting process last year for statewide, and our impact was that.
Now, when it, when it went from THEC to the state, it would have been somewhere around 10 million. So I believe this one got cut as the governor's budget went through the legislature. So, and it was institution-wide. It wasn't just us. It was all LGIs, UT. Yeah.
The thought is to spend more on TCATs and those kind of things, and that has
That's right.
probably negatively impacted our budget for a short period of time. Because they had more money to spend.
They sure did.
We just got less.
So I point that out because that was an obvious change, but also the fact that it just underscores one of the variables that are in play as we design and forecast. And when we put out projects that show 3, 4, 5 years out, then you can see just a change like that has to be accounted for and adjusted even in our planning. So those are what I'll consider the most current, what's been submitted to THEC for the 2021, and then we're just now getting started in the design process for the others that you've approved. On page 54, these are the projects, the historical projects by their fiscal years that show you in general kind of where they stand, and it would be probably, as you would assume, 2018-19, those are all in construction, and during this fiscal year, most of them will be coming out of construction. Construction will be completed. We anticipate that. The prior years of 2017 and 18, there's a few still in construction, but many are already completed. And then if you look at 16, 17, you'll see the completion rate on those. So you get an idea about the periods of funding, design, beginning of construction, and then the construction process itself. So this is intended to give you sort of that flow and timeline, because I know it's important when we're approving projects, trying to know kind of the status of the work that's gone on before. So that's a general presentation on that. One thing I think I'll just point out as you look at these or contemplate these, you'll see themes from year to year. You'll see major infrastructure projects. You'll see things like we're focused on elevators, we're focused on major utilities and things like that as we keep the infrastructure up and current as best we can for the funding levels that we have. And so you'll start to see those types of things emerge. And to your point, there is some art to this, because to get a lot of money at one time, you have to be able to, implement the projects in a way, because class is still going on. We're maintaining the airplane as it's flying, if you will. So there's always a point at which can you do it all at one time. So staging of the projects is very important. So there are themes that are maybe hidden in there that you'll look from year to year, particularly as you look forward. You'll see rotations of projects. We'll focus on roofs are kind of a recurring one, but you'll see things like a utility project here, and then it will skip a year or so and come back and pick up another section. So the idea is to try to implement these things in as least impactful way to the operations as we can. But I know we heard a little bit of roofing project going on in this building earlier, so that's the sound of progress to me and interference for others. So those are kind of built in there. I just want to kind of give you that generally, but I'll be happy to entertain any questions you have about the process or anything. And if I may, I want to take 1 second and introduce Julie Morrell to you. Julie is our Director of Capital Construction on campus, and she's just a great employee for us, and she runs this program once we get to construction on campus. So she handles a lot of the day-to-day on that for us, and her staff and her team are really excellent. So I just wanted to put a face with that name. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. Thank you.
And our last tab 5, is regarding a annual report that has to be sent to a couple of our legislative committees each year. It's in TCA. So when you look at TCA, it does say submitted by Tennessee Board of Regents, UT System, and the boards of the locally governed institutions. So we want to make sure that anytime we're submitting a report on your behalf, that you have a copy of it and able to ask questions. And I'm going to let Kathy take that over.
He stole a little bit of my thunder this morning.
Stole it all, didn't he?
I know. I didn't get to talk about raises for the first time, and I don't know when. So anyway, today I get to bring to you the report that we are required to send to the Education Committee for the House of Representatives and Senate annually that shows how many grievances that we have had filed by classified individuals that have been either terminated, suspended, or demoted. You will see in your packet that there were 0 reported for this last fiscal year. That doesn't mean that there was no terminations. It just means that no one took the opportunity to grieve the action. So there were 0.
Good.
Any questions?
Kathy, great report.
Yeah, it's a congratulations to the world that we're in. That's pretty amazing, to be honest.
Thank you, Alan.
That's it.
Good job.
Thank you.
Open it up for any discussion on any other items that the committee might have or topics.
For a later discussion, it has to do with our associates, faculty, and all the above. I'd like to know how we handle child care here at the university.
Okay.
For example, it's a hot subject in Nashville. Vanderbilt is going buying real estate, bought Pete DeLay, our trustee, former headquarters, and is doing a neighborhood child care facility. they're going out to where the employees go, drop the kids off, go and come to work, which is an interesting concept, and that's building up. I'd just be interested in knowing how we're doing that. And today, it's always important for, I think, trustees to receive updates. For example, how we compare to the LGIs on enrollment. That communication, a lot of it's a brag point, a lot of it's an uh-oh point, but if that information can continue flowing from the President's office, we'd appreciate it.
We certainly agree, and we've spoken to this before, Trustee Baker. We've tried very hard to get information from our LGIs and haven't been able to do that. As soon as we get the information, we certainly will provide that. That is something we've done consistently across the board.
Encouraging.
Sydney, do you want to assign the project of child care for our next meeting?
Yes, we'll assign it to Trustee Baker, who would, no. We'll work with Dr. Deb Sells and the provost. Deb will take the lead on that.
Okay, perfect.
Austin P has a child care. And it's interesting, they need to adjust their child care because now it's at 7 in the morning till 5. But if you're going for older students like we are, she said even though they were losing money, they were going to go to 8 o'clock because so many people got off work and didn't have a place to take care of children so they could take night classes. So anyway, that's I know we've talked about
Yeah, and just the history of that. This issue has been dealt with over the years. We actually developed a very comprehensive plan several years ago to put in place regarding child care. And then our budget got zapped $38 million. We had a university-wide committee through both Deb's operation and through our child care center. We do have a child care center on campus. But the issue of providing support for students across the board becomes an issue of finance. I mean, and we can pull out that old plan and share that with you, and we have to make some tough decisions about our priorities with respect to the limited resources that we have. So it's something that's been on our radar screen. We've had committees, we have had plans in place, and we certainly be willing to take a look at that. But the bottom line is finance. It's gonna cost, and we will look at that.
It'd be interesting to look at it one more time, then we'll wait 2 years or something. But,
And then look at it.
yeah.
And there's two areas there, right? We're conflating faculty, staff, childcare, and student childcare.
That's right.
And maybe there's a private company that would provide that.
I guess I was referring to faculty more than student, because I have very little knowledge on the student.
The student issue is the big one, what we hear from, particularly when you look at the average age of our students. You mentioned that earlier, Trustee Martin. So it's an issue, and we'll relook at it again. Appreciate it.
Any other comments for the committee? Hearing none, this committee is adjourned.
Good, Josh, you're right on time.